Yeah, we're coming to you live, Triple T number 16. All right. And we got the recordings going. It is April 19th, 2022. So glad you guys are here. I guess I can do this now quick. If this is your first time on Triple T or TSWB Helps, I would appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button and ring the little bell and all that stuff, spread the word. We're just here trying to help people out, fix things, train, teach, any topic, but mainly we talk about stuff in regards to hypnosis and energy work, things of that nature. Tonight we got a couple of items that I set up in advance. Getting offended, sales languaging, and enjoying life. All sorts of fun stuff. Oh, I forgot to type our little message in here. Shows how much I type. Think I'd be better at this. That's part of me proving I'm human. So, before we get rolling into the topics that I stumbled across this week, any ahas, epiphanies, stuff that's happened in the week that you guys would like to share? Francine was sharing something awesome with us just before we started the recording. Francine, would you mind?
Well, I took your advice and I decided to start cooking new recipes. And so I took Google and I typed in best curry recipe. And I looked for a 5-star and I tried it. And it was some Singapore curry. And I looked the ingredients. It was kind of simple because, you know, I'm a bit slow these days. And it looked very spicy, so I didn't put as much spices in that, especially the
Spicy.
cheese. I grew up on French food, so it's very mild, very not spicy at all. So I made it, and it was incredibly hot. However, everybody loved it. It was just so delicious. And it was the first time that I actually made something like that. And that was actually delicious, if that makes sense. I had to add cream for myself because I couldn't eat it. It was too spicy. But yeah, it was absolutely out of this world. So yeah, please try new things. It's worth it.
Well,
I've decided I'm going to do one a week.
cool. Kudos to you for stepping out of your comfort zone and finding out that there are amazing things that you can experience even in the smallest little realms. Um,
Yes, and next week we're doing Mexican.
whoop, whoop.
So I love Mexican food, so I can't
Oh,
wait.
me too, immensely, especially San Diego Mexican. And for those of you that just went, Mexicans, Mexican, no. If you've lived in San Diego or visited San Diego at any point in time, you'll understand that San Diego has its own little thing with spices and prep that is unique to San Diego. And I got very addicted to it. And that kind of makes it kind of hard to travel and try something else. We finally got lucky. The angels shined upon us, and I found a little Mexican restaurant here in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And the owner grew up in Chula Vista, and that's how he makes his food. Because we had tried 8 different Mexican restaurants here in the area before, and they were basically glorified sit-down Taco Bell. Yeah, I was about to give up hope, but I knew there had to be a good Mexican restaurant around here, and I found it. They know me now. And a couple of days ago, I had my first surprise special. I'm getting them properly trained. It was phenomenal. So I'm even a happier boy. That's one of my little breakthroughs, ahas for the week. Anybody else before we get rolling on the stuff? Holly, did you say you had something that worked out for you?
Well, I did actually. This week, it was really important for me to have our class last week, that reminder of if you have more than 3 priorities, you have no priorities. I started this week with about 25 priorities, and I just couldn't get started on anything. And then that popped into my head, and I narrowed it down to 3, and just all week, just biting away, and I got everything done. And I don't think I would have if I hadn't gone there. So thank you.
Yay!
I think
And
Lenora might have something she wants to share with the group. Maybe.
what was that?
Maybe. If not, that's okay.
And Bonnie asked me what my favorite. Were you asking me what my favorite dish is?
At the Mexican.
Oh, that's a tough. I'm a full blown foodie. I'm like, I go to the buffet, and I'm the one that everybody looks at. How that skinny boy take all that? Where you put that food? You what? Yes, I'm the one walking away with 3 plates like this because I want to try everything. And there's very little food that I've found that I don't like. And trust me, those few things I have tried at least 3 different times, and they have successfully proven to me that I don't have to eat them anymore.
But back to the Mexican food. What was your favorite dish at the Mexican, or what from a Mexican perspective that you were just looking for looking for the right place to find?
Oh, well, the right place was more flavors and spices.
Okay.
Again, San Diego has a very unique culture. Even the people that live there that have like I've traveled to Cancun and Tijuana and Mexico City, and the spices and preparation styles of San Diego are unique from all of those. So it's kind of like when you talk about pizza, pizza is pizza. Well, explain that when you go to New York or Chicago.
Yeah.
About
I
pizza.
think you mean Italy, TJ.
Yeah. Actually,
If you talk about pizza, the best pizza is not in Italy. The best pizza is in Luxembourg. If you go to Europe, go to Luxembourg and have some decent pizzas.
See?
I'm throwing that around.
That's what I love about food man, you want to talk about people. I grew up in Minnesota, yeah. And so I know comfort food and a good hot dish. I tell you what, but like Francine pointed out, in Minnesota, they even think that Heinz ketchup has a little snap to it. Some of us have to use Hunt's. That Heinz has a little right there, yeah. But they will drink coffee that looks like boiled down oil. It comes out at a slow, and you can stand the spoon up in the cup. After you drink a cup worth, you can actually mow the lawn with your fingernail clippers. Like, okay. And these ladies, I grew up, I attended Lutheran church there in a town of 187 people. Yeah, you go to church and you had to be, you could always tell when there was tourists in town because they would be sitting in somebody's pew. Be like, oh, are you related to the Johnsons? Yeah? Yeah? No? No, well, they're going to be here in about 3 minutes. They're a little late sometimes, but yeah, this is their pew. Yeah. Yeah, you can sit over on that pew. The Andersons, their kids are off to camp, so there'll be about 3 seats at the end you can use, Yeah. But the other thing about it, after church, you could go downstairs for a Sunday go to meat and bun and a cool water sandwich and a cup of that super hot, super coffee, and then go home and get stuff done. That's why you didn't want to mess with the grandmas. They may have this little flap down here, but you didn't mess with them. You know why? Because they ran that Kirby vacuum, that 115-pound Kirby vacuum, about 3 times a week. They hit you with that Kirby punch, they knock you out, they kill you. Grandma killed a goat one time, ate her roses, right on the forehead. Bam, done, dead. Dad came home. What happened to the goat? It's in the pot. We're having it for supper. What? You killed the lawnmower? Yeah, ate my roses. 1 Kirby punch, done. Oh, Kirby punch, yeah. Yeah, that goat didn't know it coming. Yep. Welcome to my world. I'd love to say I make this stuff up, but no, go to my hometown. Everybody be like, oh yeah. Yep, Mrs. Anderson, Kirby punch. Mrs. Hoppy hit me one time in the shoulder laughing. I cracked a joke. She was like, ah! Hit me. I walked crooked for 3 days. But she also stirred a pot and cooked for, 8 kids and her husband 3 times a day. And that grip, I tell you what, she could break an oak limb just by grabbing it and okay, but that's not what we came here to discuss. Squirrel. And if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to Comedy Hour. Now on with the rest of the show. Okay, any other stuff any other ahas, breakthroughs before we get into, yes, Bonnie.
I don't know that it's a breakthrough, but I guess when I did David's mastermind on Saturday, I missed the image cycling part when we first started.
Uh-huh.
So then I met up with another group, and I guess I missed or was asleep during that session when David talked about image cycling. Where does he teach image cycling, in which of his classes?
He's got a couple of different ones that he integrates that in with. I'm not sure what his upcoming schedule is, but I know Stephanie could point you out to which one that would be in.
Because he teaches stuff and doesn't always give it a name. And then when he gives it a name, it may not, you may know it and just didn't know you knew it. Well, I didn't know this. I thought it was neat. It was different. I mean,
when we actually had a triple T with a special teacher who touched on some image cycling stuff as well. So you
okay. Oh, all right.
Were you able to log in for that one? Did you see the one where I had to leave early and Miss Holly taught for half the class?
No, but it's on my list of things to do.
Yep. Great training.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes, no, do. Average week. Huh, look at that. All the talent that we have on this blows my mind. I am so proud and honored and humbled to be here with all of you. So, without any further ado, let's get on to the fun stuff that I've stumbled across this week. Question for the group: is it okay to get offended, and is it okay to let children get offended? Is it all right to have people offend you?
What's offense?
Ah,
Because everyone has a different definition.
thank you. Nothing means nothing till you give it a label, huh? Here's where this popped up and how it came in. On PragerU, Dennis Prager told a story that resonated big time with me. He was 6'4" in school, and so just like me, being one of the tallest ones in the class, you're gonna play basketball. You gotta play basketball. And it didn't even matter that he was not into sports, and I was a motorhead at the time. If you don't know what that means, I started hanging out in a mechanic shop when I was 11 and bought my first car when I was 12. And by the time I was 17, my friends and I could tear a motor out of a car on a weekend, rebuild it, and put it back in and drive it Monday. So Dennis told the story about how he, just like I, finally got talked into playing basketball. And the coach told the team, well, I guess we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. We finally got Prager on the team. Well, that was kind of a shit thing to say. And yeah, he admitted he got offended. And I had a few similar things like that said to me when they figured out that I was trying to play basketball. Apparently I fouled somebody, and they're like, foul! And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. You fouled him. I'm like, yes, but what did I do? Well, you fouled him. I'm like, I don't know what a foul is. You don't know what a foul is? What are you, dumb or something? Yeah, well, I looked at him and I said, what's the firing order on a small block Chevy? You're a dude. You don't know that? How dumb are you? Well, that really built rapport. But his point was, is it okay for people to get offended? Especially children. And we both agree, yes. Because it's going to happen for the rest of their life. And we're getting to the point where we are attacking offense at such a level. How dare you offend me? I'm offended. Yeah. And? Well, you've offended me. You must apologize. Well, not really. All I did was offended you. One, like, show me on the dolly where you're bleeding. Yes, I hurt your feelings. Show me on the dolly where do you really need a doctor? Are you going to be One of the things that popped into my head when I saw that was being offended, having somebody offending you, to me seems like the cement that helps hold the building blocks of your values and criteria together. Because when somebody offends you, you have to do a little bit of introspective and figure out, Well, why does it offend me? Like Bonnie pointed out, it's a label, but you can't be offended if it doesn't go against your values and criteria. And if it happens enough, you get to build those building blocks of your values and criteria and build that foundation of who you are. If I think if you were so easily offended, to me, that would seem like really bad cement in your values and criteria, because now everything's going to offend you and people are going to be able to attack you much easier. We all know those people that, oh my goodness, everything you say is racist. Everything I say? Well, yes, that's how I take it. Well, sounds like you got some issues there, Chester. Maybe you should see somebody about that. That offends me. I'm sure it does. Did you know the sun came up today? Yes, that offended me. All right, you're going to have a bad life. I'll be over here being less offended, which will probably offend you. And like Elijah said, sticks and stones, mate, sticks and stones. I remember that saying quite well because it was said a number of times, Friends and family, your friends from school, kids can be brutal. Talk about offending. Go to school. Yes, but did you get hurt? Yeah, but they hurt my feelings. Oh, sticks and stones. You grow up. Get used to it. Fran also pointed out there's a difference between offending hurtfully and waking somebody up to a blind spot. Absolutely. And that's kind of in the values and criteria thing. I'm sorry I offended you. Why is that important to you? Well, because I guess. And it's a good way to get in and find out, what is it about that really got to them? What are their values and criteria? And if you look at the dark side of it, one of the easiest ways to get rid of somebody is to attack their values and criteria. Been known for quite a while. And some people do it on purpose and some people do it by accident. So, anybody else got anything they'd like to share on that topic? Yeah, go ahead.
That's what you need best friends for, to tell you your blind spots, to say things that would be offensive from other people that you can take because you know that your friends love you and care. And they will, your real friends will tell you the stuff you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And it's important.
Yeah, kind of like the people that you see out in public that I like to say have a bad case of nose. No friends, no family, no mirror. Nobody afraid to offend them by going, yeah, don't go out looking like that. No. Does this shirt look good on me? Oh, yeah. Why did you tell her? Well, I didn't want to offend her. Yeah, now she's out in public looking like a circus clown. Oh. Yeah. Anybody else? or I'll move on to the next subjecto. All right. Then I'm going to jump into just a quick thing that sometimes you ever be like this close to sleep and then all of a sudden a thought runs across your forehead and you're like, oh, I can't let that one go. Fine. And I had one the other night. Just something that crossed my mind that it would behoove you to enjoy as much of every day as possible. You're trading your life for it. And you look at people that have, had near-death experiences or, all the above. How does their life change? How drastically sometimes? Because they realize that could have been it. Done. And, like Tim McGraw's famous song, live like you were dying, you are. Every second we're closer to death. And we think that we've got time because we don't know when it is. I had to pop that into my sister's head pretty hard when my father was in a hospice bed and she was out in the hallway, bawling her eyes out. And I said, get in there and spend some time with Papa. And she's like, no, he's dying. I'm like, well, okay, wait a minute. So why aren't you crying for me then? And she was like, what? I said, why aren't you crying for me? I said, tomorrow I'm going to get in a car, drive to the cities and get on a plane that you refuse to fly on planes because planes crash, people die, which means the plane that you're afraid to get on, that I'm going to get on, could crash, I could die. And if I successfully land in San Diego, I'm going to drive on San Diego freeways where people die. And then the next day, it's going to be nice because it's San Diego. I'm going to ride my motorcycle on a San Diego freeway where people crash and die. I could, for all purposes, be dead before Papa, but you're not crying for me. Why? Because you're pretty sure you know how much time Papa doesn't have left, and you think that I have more time than he does. And what are you going to do if one of us dies before Papa? That body that he's in is failing him, but the spirit and the mind are still in there. Go in there and spend some time that you have left with him. Laugh, talk. He's not the body. He's still in there. As much as I am here in a body that you think is going to last me longer than he does. So again, please, it would behoove you to enjoy as much of every single day as possible. You are trading your life for it. And I'm not saying that I live mine to the max, even though I try, but I have a pretty good time. And I try to look at the good side. I like to see the flowers inside of the weed bed, because even my flower beds have weeds, but I know that if I water and feed the flowers more, at least they'll be taller than the weeds. And even though I know there's weeds there, I don't give them as much attention. It just is. Life's too short to worry about weeds. Anybody else want to share anything on that one?
And sometimes weeds have a purpose. They are good weeds. They bring sometimes unexpected things.
Exactly. Now here's one for you. You know how you can tell the difference between a flower and a weed? If it pulls out easy, it was a flower. You ever been, I wonder if that's a weed. Whoop. No, that came out way too easy. Weeds, you're like, oh, there's still that much left. Mm-hmm.
I tried to plant new plants that I've never done before, and I had a row of it's to make curry. It's those they've got different names in different countries. So anyway, so I actually pulled them out by accident.
Yep.
They were very easy to pull out.
Yep.
And then I realized, maybe not. Maybe it is a new thing.
Right.
But yeah, I still left some, thankfully.
Good.
But
Right.
yeah,
In some places, they use weeds to reclaim degraded land, that weeds are the strongest plants. So if an area's been, won't grow anything because it's been degraded by water or salt or whatever, the weeds will come back first. And then when they start rehabilitating the ground, other plants will come in that you want. So there's a whole, and this also restores waterways that have been damaged. So weeds ain't all bad.
Yep. And when it comes to that, are they really weeds? That's the funny part is, like I point out, some people that have a problem with being pessimistic, and I'm like, go out and notice little accomplishments in life. Like even if there's a dandelion coming up through the crack in the sidewalk, and most people are like, oh, it's a damn weed. It's got a pretty yellow flower, and the leaves are actually medicinal. So is it a weed, or is it just because you were told it was a? I know one guy, his entire front yard was dandelions, and the neighbors hated him. He was like, I like yellow flowers, and they're cheap, and they grow well, really well, really, really well. And you know what else? The kids like coming over when they're the white puff balls. And they reseed my lawn for free. So, one person's weed is another person's flower. Yes, Fran, weeds are plants you don't particularly want growing in a particular place, our judgment. And you can make coffee with dandelion root, and it's good for you. Yeah. I remember the first time my rich dad's dad had us going out picking dandelion leaves, and I'm like, you don't want us like ripping the whole thing out? And he's like, no, just get the good leaves, bring them to me. And I'm like, okay. And he made a salad, fried up a little bacon, poured a little bacon grease over it, real healthy stuff, but crumbled up some bacon. And I was like, we're eating weeds? He goes, yes, and it's good for you. So be quiet, try it. He was right. It was good. Any other stuff you guys would like to share on that little topic? All right. Well, on to the fun one that I threw in, sales languaging. This should be interesting. Part of what I'm going to touch on is, again, values and criteria elicitation. And I know that I've touched on this a little bit before, but had a couple of experiences since last week, and watched some people are just almost like automatically, or they do it automatically without realizing what they're doing. They're just good at asking questions. The salespeople that I dislike the most, that's a nice way of putting it, are the ones that, hi, what do you want? Oh, we got, here's what I have on the shelf, and this is what you need. Take it. They don't qualify what you were looking for, other than the fact that it's kind of close to what you described. Well, I was actually looking for the model XYZ. Yeah, well, we don't want that, and we don't have it. It was a piece of junk, and we've got the model ABC. That's the one you want. That, yep, right there. That's the one you need. And they don't even tell you why the ABC is better, or what it is about the XYZ that they don't like. They just know that the XYZ was a piece of junk, and they've got an ABC, and that's one you're supposed to take. Versus my favorite story about the Macy's effect, where I wish that I'm going to have to do some more research on it and find out possibly who came up with the sales techniques that they taught their floor staff. But back in the day, Mrs. Olson would come into Macy's, and the sales staff would be like, hello, what can I help you with today? Oh, I'm looking for a blender. And they knew right away to ask Mrs. Olson all sorts of questions. What are you looking for? What size? What's important to you? How will you know when you get it? Are you looking for glass or stainless? Are you looking for 15 speed or 3? Are you going to be chopping ice, or do you want the Mondo family size, or you're just looking for a little one? And when they would finally boil it down to exactly what she needed, and sometimes in the questioning, what she thought she wanted wasn't correct, because she hadn't had a chance to go through all of the values and criteria herself. Finally, they get down to the bottom, and here was one of the main clinchers. The salesperson would go, hold on just a sec, I'll be right back. Stay right here, I'll be right back. And he would come back and he would go, what you're looking for is the model XYZ. We don't have that in stock, unfortunately. And she's like, he goes, however, Sears has one in stock. We got one set aside for you at the customer service desk. So just go down there and they'll have it waiting for you. And Mrs. Olson's like, what? You're sending me to your competitor? Well, yeah, because we determined that the best model for you is the model XYZ. And again, we don't have that one in stock, but Sears does. And I've got one waiting for you at the customer service desk. And so Mrs. Olson leaves Macy's kind of like, huh? Walks down to Sears. Sure enough, there they've got a model XYZ. It is exactly what she needed. And it's waiting for her. Where does Mrs. Olson go anytime she needs anything for the rest of her life? Straight to Macy's. How many people does Mrs. Olson tell about her experience? Anybody with a heartbeat that can hear and understand the language coming out her mouth. That kind of experience is the best. If you can't give a person what they need, the best thing that you can do is to boil it down to exactly what they need. And if you don't have it, find somebody for them and send them there. The loyalty and rapport that builds, you can't get out of advertising. And positive word of mouth advertising of that nature is one of the strongest business building forces on the planet. Any questioning on that so far? Okay. Other things are adding in, especially in sales and stuff like that, is usage of a lot of open-ended questions for getting conversation to flow. Again, one of my favorite words to be utilized in stuff like that is the word might, because it allows the subconscious to not feel so funneled into finding an answer. You know, what might you be looking for in the product that you're looking for? Why might that be important to you? Whereas, well, what are you looking for? Why is that important to you? So it's kind of a I don't know, a buffer in a way. But I found it ever since it was, Dr. David pointed it out, I use it a lot, and I've found that it is extremely good for asking questions that, especially like we pointed out earlier in the talk, people are so thin-skinned and get offended so easily. The use of the word might seems to soften that up. It also allows people to be a little more open-minded, I guess, in their answering, because they don't feel like they're held so responsible for the answer. Does that make sense? Good. I'm seeing a couple of nodding heads, so seem to be on the right track. For those of you that have been with me from the beginning, you've also heard me preach and preach and preach and preach about the amazing languaging patterns of echo talk and three magic questions. Again, when you go to the foundation of how to use them, know your outcome. Echo talk and three magic questions are awesome when it comes to sales, because the best way to help find somebody's values and criteria for what they're looking for is to have a proper rapport built. Now, I can sit there and tell you that you need the model ABC, all day long. But if I don't have rapport built and you came looking for an XYZ, how comfortable do you feel about that sale? And what are the chances that you're going to have buyer's remorse? What are the chances when you get it home, are you going to feel like you got taken? So in utilizing the language patternings that we teach, echo talk, 3 magic questions, values and criteria, elicitation, if you're into sales, those are paramount. When you go back to some of the recordings that I've said before, raise your hand if you're in sales. Go ahead, let me see you. Raise your hand if you're in sales. Every single person from birth is in sales. It proven over and over and over and over. When you were a kid, if you wanted something, you had to sell mom and dad on it. And before we understood language, how did we do it? We cried. That was one form of sales. The other one, we figured out if we act really cute. Aww. Want to get hugged quicker? Act cute. That's all sales. So I get a lot of people that, when they come to me and maybe they're in the process of another profession change, so shall we say it. Their business went through a slim down. And they were part of the diet. And I tell them, all right, well, what are you looking at? Have you studied sales? Well, I don't want to do sales. Well, define sales. An interview, talk about a sales job. Interviews are completely sales. Well, why should we pick you? Well, let me tell you the benefits and criteria that I have available for you. You'll see on my sales sheet all the things that I can offer you. Now, Dr. David teaches a class of, one of the things he teaches is called Interview Buster. And a lot of it includes, it's majorly echo talk and values and criteria elicitation. It's kind of like reversing the interview. Well, what are you looking for in this position? What's important to you? How will you know when you get it? And as the hiring person lists off some of their values and criteria, and you're echo talking them, when they get done and you've found out enough of what's important to them about the position, then you can echo talk all of the things that correlate to you personally. Well, if you look at my resume, you'll notice that I'm able to do this one thing that you listed, and this thing that you listed, and this thing that you listed. And even though it's not on my resume currently, I also have the ability to do this thing that you talked about. So that's what you were looking for, right? As you look at them and smile and nod and get hired for a job that you're not as qualified as others, but you understand how to elicit values and criteria and build quick rapport. Some may call it cheating. I call it understanding language and understanding people and understanding sales. Any input that you guys, any questions or comments, ahas? Yes, no, I'm doing okay.
I suppose you can also use it when you have people coming for hypnosis sessions
Oh,
to
yes.
figure out what they think they issue truly is, and then kind of narrow it down with echo talk, get them to talk more about it. So you use their own words during the hypnosis to actually dig deeper and have better results.
Exactly. And especially in the consultation, consultation is basically an interview of why should I work with you? Because you want to make sure that you are qualified. And I've had to refer out a number of people. And I'll tell you what, when you get started, that can be a little challenging because I want to help everybody, anybody. And there were a couple that, in retrospect, I realized that, yeah, I should have passed them off. I saw the red flags. I was like, oh, but I can fix those flags. I can fix the other stuff. The flags weren't what needed to be fixed. The flags were going, danger, Will Robinson, danger. And so you want to use these types of stuff in your consult, just like you do out in the world, dealing with people in their natural environment. In fact, one of the classes that I've got coming up that I'm going to be teaching will be a full deep dive into the art of sales languaging. And I'm going to take a couple of different, whoever signs up for the class, some of it will be directed strictly for the environment that they're working in.
Is it going to be online?
Yes, I'm working on being able to get everything set up for in person and online. The joys of restarting and new property and excuse. But yes, the answer is yes. I will be, as soon as possible, be offering my classes online as well. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you guys' support. It's humbling, and I appreciate that. Any other questions or input on what I talked about on sales? Now, for those of you that are into live in-person sales, some of the other stuff that I'm going to be teaching in my class will be about approaches, bodily approaches, and things of that nature. Because if you've ever ended up being in thanks, Bonnie. See you on the next one. If you've ever been in a position for buying something and the sales, especially, I hate to say it because I used to sell cars, but car salesmen, have any of you been to a car dealership and felt like you were the small tuna fish in the Shark Tank? And they were like, dun, 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 and they're heading straight towards you, and you can feel the energy, and they're looking at you like bait, fresh bait. Oh, sale coming. And I've had to talk to a couple of them, and you think they would get it, but yeah, not so much. So, what can I help you find today? A cow, maybe a car. What do you got? But a lot of times what I see is, oh, we're just looking. Well, what are you looking for? And it gets into that generic tennis game of, are you really looking to buy? Or are you looking to kick the tires? Or, what can I sell you that's on my lot? Because I got to get my numbers up and I really want to make a sale. And I know you're looking for this specific model that we don't have here, but what you really need is you need this one over here that's not really kind of like what you're looking for, but it has 4 wheels and a steering wheel and it goes down the road, and I could actually make my numbers if I can talk you into buying this one that you don't need. Are you interested? And the few car guys that I taught, ironically, were the young ones who hadn't already decided that they knew everything. And they got back, 2 of them got back to me about 6 months after I taught them and said that they had become the #1 salesperson. A bunch of their sales were off of referrals, and the old boys thought they were cheating. Like, well, they kind of were. They took a class that you refused to take. They learned a new technique. They learned how to start with, what are you looking for? They learned values and criteria and echo talk and 3 magic questions. And suddenly, well, they were also not afraid to really torque off the old boys when they heard them sending somebody to a different lot where they knew there was a vehicle that matched what they were looking for. In fact, they were smart enough to build rapport with salespeople from other dealerships and make a call right in front of the customers that were looking. Hey, Bob competitor, you don't happen to have a on your lot, do you? Oh, you do? How many miles on it? Oh, cool. What motor? All right. What's price? Is that the best you can do? All right. I got Mr. and Mrs. Jones over here. I'm sending them over right now. Put that in the wash bay. Clean it up. They'll be there in about 10 minutes. The old boys lost their mind. How dare you send them over to the competitor? Then 3 more sales were, Mr. and Mrs. All said that you're the person we want to talk to. We're looking for a car. What are you looking for? Let me ask you some questions. They said you were going to ask some questions. Funny how that works, huh? Well, that brings us about 3 minutes away from the top of my hour. Anybody got any input so far on this week's topics or? Bueller, come out of trance. Bueller. Yes, Fran.
Okay. 3 magic questions in this sort of an environment, in sales environment.
Yeah.
How have you found that to totally give you everybody's attention and they're hanging on your words so you can make your sale of whatever you're selling, including yourself?
Well, staying in the topic of car sales. 3 magic questions. Second question, profession, profession, passion. So, out of curiosity, what kind of work do you do? Well, I'm a da 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 da. So, is there something about this vehicle that you're looking for that would be important in regards to the type of work you do? What are you passionate about? Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, get them talking about what their passion is. And yes, it might be a little short sidetrack squirrel that you both chase, but you're building rapport. Another thing is, what are you looking for? What makes you want a Mustang? Oh, well, my pops had one. Oh, yeah. I bet when you were a kid, you liked to ride with your pops in a Mustang like that, huh? Magic question number 3, early positive childhood memories. Again, you're building rapport, which helps build trust.
And if you've got a new best friend in your client, who are they going to come back to?
Yes. And again, if you don't have exactly what they're looking for, but you've taken the time to build the rapport, drill down to their values and criteria, and help them understand even better exactly what they're looking for, even if you can't find it right away, but you tell them that you're going to follow up with them, and you get on the internet and research and find that vehicle for them and call them up, what is that going to do for your reputation? Even if you have to send, it's a long drive, but I actually found one. It's about 50 miles away. It's at ABC dealership. And I called and verified, talked to the salesman, and it's everything you were looking for. Miles are a little bit higher than you were asking, but I talked to the mechanic, and he said it's totally sound. You might want to go drive up there and take a look at it. Well, if the guy drives there and takes a look at it and ends up buying it, who gets the credit? The guy that wrote up the sale or you? The guy that wrote up the sale gets the commission, but you get the credit. So there's a lot to be said about learning proper sale and realizing that all of these language patterning ideas can be applied anywhere, anytime, for any reason, as long as you understand the mechanics behind them. And that's where the biggest part of learning them lies. That makes sense? Cool. That brings us up to the top of the hour. For those of you who have not participated in Triple T before, or this is the first recording you've watched, I open up my mind and share my stuff with you for the first hour, and then the second hour it's almost like open mic, but if nobody wants to step on stage, then I ask if there's anything that you guys would like me to touch on, or anything that people would like to share, or if anybody would like to teach something that they are excited about. This is open mic time. What do we got? Hit me with your best shot. All right.
something a bit out of line. Voice and voice control and voice management and modulation when either using in hypnosis or sales or any situation.
Perfect. And we have a voice specialist on the panel who can help me with this as well. She just turned the same color as her shirt, but that's okay. Voice and inflection and voice usage is uber big in anything. There's so many ways that it can be manipulated. I've had a couple of breakthrough ahas in the last couple of weeks about that, in the fact that you guys have probably noticed that I like to make a lot of different voices and things of that nature. And there are some sounds and voices that I can make that seem unusual for me. And I realized that it was because I was pretending, I was acting. There are certain songs that I can sing when I'm in the mindset or pretending to be the singer. But as soon as the song is over and I try to recreate it, even if I'm videotaping myself, oh, there's a difference, and it's not always pretty. No, sir. Some of those notes I can only hit when I am singing with the recording. I've proven it with recording capability, and I have basically a built-in recording studio here. So yes, I've proven it to myself many times. But there are I like to do certain things that I call audio infections. Think like Weird Al Yankovic, where he takes well-known songs and changes the lyrics, and then they're stuck in your head for the rest of time. Well, there's a few of those that I can do, and when I do them, I pick up different personas, which allows me to sing it in a way that I don't know that I could any other way. Now, for those that are learning how to make different sounds, or those that have grown up challenged at different sounds, we have a person on our panel who actually helps people with that all the time. And I've been able to ask her a couple of questions sometimes when we were talking about stuff, and her knowledge in that department blows me away. And she's going to kill me, but luckily I'm too far away for the bullet to hit. So I'm going to ask her to share a couple of little tidbits or ahas that she may think are relevant. So, Miss Lenora, would you please share with us?
Hi guys, how's it going? And you're just so thrilled that I'm gonna say something. Holly's over there, like. So Fran, did you have a specific question about voice or about vocal cords, or what's happening? Are you just kind of like general information?
I think actually TJ started leading into maybe what I'm wanting to investigate, which is kind of deep trance identification and becoming a particular person for the occasion. And you know, if you want to just soothe somebody into a very deeply relaxed place, or if you want to excite them, you know, that you have to be different people for the different jobs or produce a different voice. And to be able to make it interesting, because some people tend to talk a bit like this if you're not careful, and it's very easy to slip into. So getting that modulation and the speed and the variation just to draw people in, that's what I want. Tell me more.
You are super, super warm. That's for sure. So for me, what I've found very specifically, if you're talking about wanting to, I know, for example, like last week, we were talking about Aphrodite, I like to amplify it. So I would even change my clothes. I would change everything if I'm trying to bring out something very, very specific. I would, even with the deep trance identification, really sit with it for a period of time and get that full flow, that full download of how it feels, how it looks, how do they move, how do they talk. Even some things that might even help, especially if you're talking very specifically about your vocal cords, you want to watch, say, I know you do recordings, you want to prepare for that recording. So vocal rest, extremely important. Watch the things that you eat, because the reflux component will actually really irritate your vocal cords, and it's not something that we're consistently aware of. Or caffeine, it will change the quality of your voice. So if you're going for a deep trance component or really wanting to focus in on this recording, I would take several hours or even a couple of days to really prepare for what you're wanting to bring. So that way you can bring all of what you want into that very specific recording.
What about time of day?
Time of day, absolutely. That's a really great question, TJ. Time of day, you want to, yes, after that vocal rest, that's super important. But what's also really important is actually warming it up, because this area especially can be really cold. You can do things like laryngeal massages. There's a number of videos that just be careful with which ones you do, and always follow your body. Really tune into what you're feeling. And if you're doing a laryngeal massage, you want to be very gentle, know your limits. You want to also warm up your voice. You don't want to just go plowing into something, because you can actually damage your vocal cords. Say if you were talking about a soprano singer and someday you woke up and you're like, let me try this note, you can do more damage. Or even if you could actually damage your vocal cord if you're on like a roller coaster and you're screaming. So you always want to warm up your voice and take that time to move into that space before you're doing it very quickly.
2 more questions from that. How does singing training, singing practice help, benefit, adjust what you're talking about? And if you need a warm up, do you need a warm down for your voice?
You need that gentle transition. You don't want to just go into very specifically for a warm down. It's not so much, I would really go more into vocal rest if you were using it differently for a period of time. Vocal rest component can really just let that tissue heal, because what's happening is you're activating different muscles and different tissues and different flows, and with different air flow and the expansion of your lungs. If you're doing that, you do want to definitely practice your singing, because you're starting to use your voice, you're starting to use these muscles and these airways in a different way, which is a great thing. But you also want to be really kind to that area and aware of what you're doing from a singing standpoint. And as you're doing it, what you're going to start to notice is you can actually maneuver those muscles differently. So for example, if I was practicing something week 1 and I record myself, but then I continue to practice, I continue to fine tune that component, just like fine tuning a guitar or a piano, you're going to start to notice that transition, and you're going to say, oh, I can control this note a little bit better, or I have more extension on here and I'm able to reach this note differently than another time. So definitely track your progress. I mean, the fact that we have phones and or even, I know you have this incredible system recording thing that you have going on. Notice where you are, so that way you can actually record and pick a very specific song so that you can hit repeat. So you don't want to do like Walking on Sunshine and then I'm dancing through the night. I don't know. So pick the same song so that you can track your progress and go from there.
Could I just throw in a couple of other little bits? Sorry, Elijah. Two things. Deep trance identification, when you're actually becoming somebody else, you actually do use your voice very differently.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk about that? And also, my daughter showed me, I think it was a website, but I've lost it now, about a particular singing training for people that wanted to sing heavy metal and,
Ooh.
you know, really scream out the songs without hurting your voice.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a bit about both of those, please?
I would definitely, for that program, so for deep trance identification, I know Elijah has dabbled with that a bit. I don't know if anybody else has. I personally have not done a full deep trance identification component, I think, to the level of what you're thinking of, but absolutely embodying that and getting that energy component. As for the heavy metal one, same thing. You want to be very careful with this because if you damage it, you're definitely going to damage it. But you can actually, so say you started to go out and do really harsh things, you can develop polyps, you can develop irritations on your vocal cords. So for example, you know, when you're sick and you go and you're coughing, or your throat clearing, and your voice gets hoarse. It gets hoarse because you're vibrating them at a very different level than what you'd normally be doing. So they actually become irritated and they don't get the same seal that they normally have, which is why your voice has to recover. So that's where, for that class, they're teaching you in a very specific manner that's going to be kind or kinder to your vocal cords. Did that make sense? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Elijah?
Morning.
Morning.
How are we doing?
Morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Fran, I put a link in the chat. It's to a TED talk by a guy called Julian Treasure, and it's called How to Speak So People Will Want to Listen. It talks a little bit about some of the exercises you can do to warm up your voice, some of the funny sounds you can make. I do them almost every morning because when you wake up, you kind of got that, oh, I've been sleeping voice, right? And if you're expecting a phone call early in the morning or you need to converse with someone, you got early appointments, they're very handy just to kind of warm up your vocal cords. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. That's a good video and you should check it out. And if you guys are watching the replay on YouTube, you can't see the chat, just Google, just search on YouTube How to Speak So People Will Want to Listen, and it's the TED Talk will be the #1 result. Check it out. It's good stuff.
I got a question for Lenora.
Yes.
What is your qualification? How long you've been doing this?
My qualification is that I have a degree in speech language pathology. I am board certified by the American Speech Language and Association of America, and I have been doing this for more than 10 years.
I need to pick your brain some more, Lenore.
Always.
Please. Not immediately, but I'll think up a million questions. This is so exciting.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Whenever you need, Fran.
Yes, brilliant.
Thank you.
Francine.
I'm thinking now, so now we've spoken about the voice, but then you also said about closing. So I know there's different types, but that's all I know about it. I don't know my type, and I have no idea about it. Yeah, so how would we know what to wear in different circumstances? And yeah, I don't know if I make any sense.
Could I ask Aaron to make some comments, because I know when he does some some work online, or when he's a host of a meeting, he does a lot of background preparation. Could I ask Aaron to share a bit of what he does?
No. It probably ties into what was running in the back of my head here, where because the way you're describing it, Fran, I'm trying to find you. There you are. The way you're describing it comes from I need to be a different person here and a different person here and a different person here, but I kind of feel like it doesn't matter what person you are as such. It's the intention that you have, whoever you are. And so you know enough about me to know that when I do the show, I'm the showman, which is what I'm doing right now, where it's I have an intention and I'm putting on a performance, and I'm conveying information, and I want people to listen. I want to speak, fluently and with a flow and all that kind of stuff. If I'm just watching, like I did on the last one that we did, I'm not saying much. So that's my thing, I think, is intention. And so I think for me, it's less about being a specific person, although I just did describe a character, but it's more about a state / intention / emotion, which then filters through what you deliver and comes through in the tone of voice. And, I'd mentioned to Elijah the other day on one of our calls, if you're working with a client and you were doing echo talk, for example, there's different intonations and there's a myriad of different ways that you can echo that back to them and have completely different results with the exact same words. If they say something and you repeat it back and you say, "That's right, you are learning," you're sort of implying something, or you're really close to this, there's something here you can get from this. Whereas if I say, "That's right, you're learning," well, that's right, you're learning, it completely changes it. Exact same words. And it's kind of what we sort of know on a meta level, right? It's the words you use are the low percentage, a low percentage of what you do, but the intention and all of that behind it, that completely changes it. You can say "I hate you" to someone and it will either come across as true, or it could come across as sarcastic and a joke, and the words are exactly the same, but yet people will have a completely different experience of it.
Oh, I hate you, Aaron.
There you go. There you go.
Just sort of piggybacking off of that, you ever hear that example where a 7-word sentence which has 7 different meanings depending which of the words you emphasize? So the sentence is, "I'm not saying she stole my money." So that's 7 words. I'm not saying she stole my money. But depending on which word you emphasize, it has 7 different meanings. It's like, "I'm not saying she stole my money," meaning I didn't say it, someone else said it. "I'm not saying she stole my money," meaning, how dare you accuse me? Like, are you even implying that I would do such a thing? "I'm not saying she stole my money." I might have implied it, but I might have inferred it. I didn't actually say it. "I'm not saying she stole my money." Someone else stole it. It wasn't her. "I'm not saying she stole my money." I mean, she borrowed it. She's a bit late paying it back, but she didn't steal it. "I'm not saying she stole my money." I mean, it was someone else's money, right? "I'm not saying she stole my money." I'm not saying she borrowed a DVD. She didn't really take money. It wasn't even that valuable, right? So emphasis also goes a long way, and I think that kind of ties into a little bit to what Aaron was saying about how when you change the tone on certain words, or you say the same thing a different way, like if you say, I don't really know how to say "I love you" in German, but if you say "I love you" in German in an angry tone, it sounds like someone's shouting at you, and it's kind of weird, and you don't get the same. But at the same time, you could say "I hate your guts and I want to kill you" in French, but because it's so soft spoken and it sounds luscious, and you think, "Ooh, the language of love," right? That kind of thing. So the tone and the sort of delivery, it goes back to, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right?
Yeah, to tag on that, my mother bought one of those Buick Rendezvous. And I said, "Yes, it sounds nice because rendezvous is a French word. But if you say it in German, it's Rendezvous." It's all in the accent. And added to that, a lot of it, because a lot of you guys here understand energy and intention when dealing with clients who have had hurtful words said to them. And when I take them back and have them repeat them exactly the way they recorded. And sometimes I really have to push them, but I'm like, I want to hear exactly how it was said to you with the same volume, the voice, the inflection, make the face, everything. And you ask that when they finally get to that point, and I've heard some brutally nasty, vicious, vile stuff. And I go, okay, so what was the energy inside that? And they're like, black, tar, just, And then I make them say it in a character. Say it like Goofy from Disney. They're like, what? I'm like, say it like Goofy. And once they get done chuckling and they can finally say the exact same vile, vicious, nasty words, but they're doing it with a grin on their face. And I ask them, what color was the energy in that? And they're like, green. And then I'll make them say it in Mickey Mouse. You're a ho. And they laugh again. And I go, what color was that? Blue. And I make them do it in Minnie Mouse. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. And they say it then. And I'm like, what color was that? And they're like, pink. And I'm like, wow. And you said it smiling and laughing. It wasn't the words. It was the energy that you recorded in the words and the way it hit you. If you take the energy out and replace it with whatever energy fits because you survived it. It doesn't matter how. Go ahead.
So can I throw it open to people? How do you increase the range of whatever aspect your focus is on so you can give more, so you can have a greater variety, a wider color palette to your delivery? Squirrel.
No.
This is part of my sales, actually public speaking deal. And to demonstrate, if I'm up on stage, and a lot of public speakers will do this, and somebody over here asks a question, a lot of public speakers will walk over to that person and say, you had a question? The training that I got and a bit that I added onto it was, if they're asking from here and I'm on stage, I'm going to move the farthest point away that I can on the stage, opposite from them. I'm going to say, and you had a question? Why would I do that? Anybody know?
Then everyone will hear you.
What's that?
Exactly. Because then everyone will hear you.
Couple of different, that's one of them. One, if I'm up here asking the question, those people don't feel as included in the answer. This is an intimate conversation here. If I'm back here and I say, and you had a question, now it's opening up the grid, everybody's included. But as Elijah put out, and this was one in the training where they were teaching this that they had not thought of yet, if I'm standing right here, what voice are you going to ask the question in? Well, my question is da 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 da. Nobody else can hear. If I move back here, even if it's only an additional 3 feet or 4 feet or even 5, the perceived distance between the two will create a need for them to speak up so that everybody else can hear. In doing the same thing when you're with people, you can pull a mental trick. Pretend that they're farther away. Pretend that they're hard of hearing. Remember to speak from the bottom of your lungs, from your diaphragm. A lot of people that are soft-spoken, I will notice, and Lenora can correct me, but people that speak from up in here have that really nice, sweet, soft voice that goes about this far. And sometimes you can hear them, but a lot of times you don't, which can be useful in applications. If you can position what part of your chest you're speaking from, learning the difference between neck, if your neck is fully stretched out. Lenora can teach about utilizing palate and tongue to be able to get more projection out. If you're working with microphones, one of my classes that I'll be teaching again coming up, and by then I should be full live, is understanding microphones and electronics. A lot of people think a microphone is a microphone is a microphone, and they're kind of not almost kind of like true, but it's like a tire is a tire is a tire. Are you talking about a tricycle tire or an earth mover tire or a tractor tire or a motorcycle tire? And then when you start getting good with that, then you can start playing with effects and having fun with people, and you can start changing the EQ and the sounding on it and everything, and you get all that little extra help that electronics are designed for. But again, it comes down to what's your intention, what's your outcome. Yes, Fran?
I was going to say, it's wonderful to be able to change your voice, but people that know you as one thing can feel quite uncomfortable with a different voice. My eldest daughter used to love me doing meditations or hypnosis for her, but since I've kind of developed more of a hypno voice, she won't listen to them anymore.
Yep.
So being aware of all these things, you are this person to somebody and this person to somebody else. It's a big minefield out there.
It is. And also the person that holds the frame the longest wins. If she understands that you don't own that mask anymore, or you can explain to her why you changed because it's and you can come up with an excuse. Honey, when I used to do it the other way, my throat would get sore. So I do it this way now because it's more effective.
I think it's just a gentle transition.
There you go.
Like a little slide, a little bit more of this hypno voice in general conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually she'd get used to it.
Yep.
Same as one of the people in our group, when Aaron did a personality transformation for me, he found it really difficult to cope with this new personality. He found it was very false, but he's gotten used to it now because, it was genuine me, but it was a different genuine me.
Mm-hmm. Yep, when people get used to seeing a certain style, change, what are you trying to prove? Nothing. That's why it's that saying, you can never go back home. Especially when you grow up in a village like I did, where everybody knows who you are. In fact, there are people in that village who knew my parents when they were children. So they know exactly who I am. Any other input, ahas? Yes, Francine.
I think that if I had to go back to Luxembourg and or seeing my family, many wouldn't recognize me at all.
Elijah, can I pick your brain about how you relate to this topic? I'm feeling that there's this enormous volume of information ready to bubble out. Please bubble.
Well, okay, so that's not a specific question. Do you have a specific question?
How do you manage all these different aspects? Do you change personalities? How many yous are there?
How long's a piece of string? You know, there's no way of answering that. I don't know how many me's there are. I think there's only one, to be honest. But kind of like something David said, that imagine it's like a diamond or a jewel of some sort, and it depends like how you hold it to the light as to which colors you get. You know, so it's not so much that I'm a different person, because I'm still me, but you know, I show different sides of me, different parts of me, and you know, if somebody's getting let's say if somebody's having a panic attack, then you know, I have the capacity to put my own shit on hold and just deal with what's happening and be solid and there for them, right? If I'm talking to my niece who's like 4 years old, you know, I'm not going to be the same way as when I'm talking to my boss at work, right? And things like that. So it's not so much, you are a diamond, Francine, don't ever forget it, you know. Better to be a diamond with a flaw than a pebble without one, you know what I mean? Right? So yeah, I think it's not so much that you become a different person, it's that you show different aspects of yourself, depending on what's appropriate, depending on what's useful, you know, depending on what your outcome is. And it all comes back down to context and outcome and things like that, because those are like the big brushstrokes, you know, that kind of control everything else, you know, because if my outcome is to get this person to sign on a dotted line and nothing else matters, they need to sign on a dotted line, I might have to yield to some of their ideas, which I hate, right? But it won't matter because it's temporary, because as soon as they sign the thing, then it doesn't matter anymore, does it? Now, that might sound a little bit like, hey, that's not very congruent and you're manipulating them, blah, blah, blah. But it's just a very simple, overly simplified, generalized example that I'm giving, right? So obviously I still am very much a believer in win-win scenarios and everybody should get what they want and things like that, right? But sometimes you have to humor people. Sometimes you have to just kind of allow them to, you know, you don't want to ever invalidate someone. Listen, if you only ever learn one thing from me, Fran, right? Don't ever tell someone that they're wrong. Ever. Like ever. Unless, like, if you want to break rapport with them, then tell them they're wrong. And tell them that they could not be more wrong. You know, if you want to break rapport with someone, say, oh my God, you're so wrong that you could try to be more wrong and you wouldn't be successful. It's so bad how freaking wrong you are right now. Oh my days, what the hell? And they will just be like, who's this rude guy? And they'll just leave you alone because they won't want to be near you. And that's how you break rapport. But if you want to keep going and you didn't successfully find a way in, and, you know, we're talking, you know, in the context of like doing hypnosis with people and things like that, they're blocking you or they're resisting, or which I don't really think resistance exists. But that's another thing. I'm not going to chase that squirrel. Yeah, I just think that you just don't tell people that they're wrong. You just say, oh yeah, that's fine. I didn't realize that you thought of things that way. And you just carry on. You don't, there's no need to create additional resistance, because the moment, like, agreement is the base currency of influence. The moment you can agree on something, you can proceed forward, right? Doesn't matter if that thing is relevant or not, right? We could be discussing salary with our boss and trying to get a raise. But if we both agree that, this type of music is good and that other type of music is horrible, then that actually helps with the salary negotiation, believe it or not, even though the two things are not related, right? So there is this kind of, Kenrick calls it the 1 plus 100% rule, which is you just find the 1%. If someone's got like the exact, I feel like I'm not on the subject team where you're asking about voice inflection, but anyway, yeah, Elijah loves to go on tangents.
Squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. What was I saying? Yes. I remembered to forget to remember.
You're
1
teaching
plus
them
100%.
Oh, yeah. Kenrick, 1 plus 100% rule. So he said that you find the 1% that you can agree with and then back that 100%. So let's say, for example, you had like a Democrat and a Republican, right? And one of them is like a massive Trump fan and the other one like completely hates Trump and thinks he's the devil, right? And they're at this barbecue that is being hosted by the Republican, right? And he goes on and says about how, obviously I know Trump's not in power anymore, but let's say he still was. Goes on about how the president's amazing and we can't wait till he eventually builds this wall between us and Mexico, and it's so refreshing, and he's like great, and we're never gonna lose our rights, and we can still keep our bullets and all that stuff. And the other person's just like churning in the stomach, thinking, "Oh my god, you're crazy," right? Did you want to ask something mid? Go on. I saw a finger, Fran. Did you want to ask something? No. Okay. Sorry. So the worst thing you can do is lie in that situation. Is turn around and say to them, "Oh yeah, you're right. Trump's amazing." What you could do, right, is find the 1% that you can agree with, and then back that 100%. So you'd say something like, "Do you know what? I have to be honest with you. I'm a Democrat. But I will say this. Trump has a way of speaking that grabs everybody's attention. No matter whether he's saying something that's super important or something that's kind of superficial, he has a way of getting people to listen. And I do hope that one day we get a Democrat in charge who knows how to grab people's attention." And what you've done is, without telling this person that you disagree with them, you've let them know where you stand, and you've created that little bit of agreement that you can now have the influence flourish from. Because if you're just at two opposite ends and you're going to butt heads against each other, you're not going anywhere. So you find the smallest thing that you can agree with, and then just back that 100% enough that they can respect your position and you can respect their position, and then you can move forward in whatever negotiation or discussion you're going to have. And I think that's a very valuable skill, to not tell people they're wrong and just kind of keep going. In terms of varying your voice, it takes practice. Use a metronome. Get a metronome app on your phone. They're free. And just have the screen there. Do it 3 ways, right? You have the screen there and you watch the thing ticking. And then you got like some, text on your computer screen, and you got your phone there on the side, and you're watching the thing and you're reading the text, and you're trying to pause every time it goes from one side. And you're kind of tuning yourself visually to the thing going from side to side, right? The metronome, right? And practicing your pauses. Then what you do is you would turn your phone around and just listen to the tick, tick, tick. So you tune in, practicing listening to it auditorily. Then what you would do is plug your headphones in and go for a walk and try and step every time it ticks, right? Which is really slow. You have to learn to walk really slow. It's very hard. But then what happens is you end up tuning into the metronome on a kinesthetic level. Now that you've tuned into it on 3 different rep systems, right? You could very easily, out of nowhere, find a way to just go into that rhythm anytime you like. And it doesn't really matter whether or not you think you're doing it on purpose or whether it's something that's unconscious for you. But as you can hear, the last couple of sentences that I've been saying, suddenly I'm able to very quickly and easily, naturally transition into that hypnotic voice, that kind of lullaby voice, the one that just allows me to get my message through. Right? So there's that. And then I'm coming, we'll let you speak in a second, Lenora. Just the last thing is what TJ was saying about where your voice is coming from. So you can always do this exercise, which is like, this is my nose, and this is what happens if I speak from my nose. And this is my throat, and this is what I sound like when I speak from my throat. And obviously you guys can't see, but if I point, this is my diaphragm. And when I speak from down here, people really listen to me, right? So you can kind of just use your hand or just put your awareness in different parts of your body and let the voice project from there. And that gives you a whole variety of variables that you can play with and train and practice this kind of musical instrument you have that is your voice box. Yeah? Nora.
Thank you, Elijah. Awesome insights. Fran, were you thinking specifically about doing a very specific audio? I don't know if you have a picture in your mind of what you're thinking about. Something that has helped me is literally like if I clear a space and I move around in that space, so at least I know I'm not going to make a lamp fall over or something like that. And really working to embody whatever component that is. So along with changing your clothing, along with that meditation, and that's what I was just curious about, is if you had the ability to even like make that space.
I want different voices for different spaces.
Okay.
In the hypnomeditation environment or meditation environment, I'm one person. When I'm in a bunch of fire brigade officials, I need to be somebody else. Okay. So I need the variation. I need to be able to become different people. I need to be able to use my voice differently. If I'm either a minority female representative in a mainly male environment, if I just stand up and shout loud and become or try and compete on that level, there's no way that I'm going to be heard. Whereas if I change to a person who's maybe soft-spoken, so there's not this challenge happening, I will be heard. And if I can be an energy that is not that sort of military type energy, if it's completely different, they don't know what to do with it. And so they listen. And it's kind of cool.
Did you ever do the exercise with David? I think it's Killer Influence or one of those courses where you practice being different people in the frame, like you practice being the dominant person in the frame, or the equal in the frame, and then like the subordinate in the frame. And oftentimes you'll find that if you choose the position of subordinate, you actually have more room to maneuver because the other person is trying to be the dominant person. And if you go to try and also be dominant or equal, they won't necessarily respond well to it. So sometimes you have to come in a little bit under the radar, but then as long as you know that it's temporary and you're just doing it to get your foot in the door, and then you're going to maneuver within the frame as you go and eventually, control the frame, then it's a very good exercise. You definitely check it out. It's in I think it's in the Killer Influence course.
You've just uncovered my secret weapon. Damn you. This is how I can get my own way with a lot of people. You let them think they're leading, and it's not a problem. Let them be the dominant one. Let them make the decision that
Have you ever considered that it works really well with clients too?
I hadn't.
That when they leave, they think, oh yeah, I spoke to him and he talked to me a little bit, and I don't really think the hypnosis worked, but I do feel different. I don't think I'll be going back. Doesn't really matter. As long as you got paid for your session up front, doesn't matter. Let them think what they want to think. Let them take full credit for their own development. I know that I put my work in, and that the fact that they couldn't see it means it was even more polished and more smooth because it became invisible. You know what I mean? The hypnosis was invisible. And that's, as you know, what I've been striving to do for the last sort of 3-4 years, is make everything.
And as a female, often in a largely man's environment, talking loudly doesn't work. So you've got to find a more suitable way to lead from behind.
Absolutely.
The person where I've done quite a lot of golf thing on, at first they did not know that it was the hypnosis that helped them a lot. However, they came back and they kept on improving, and so they stopped, and then they stopped improving. And then they came back, and it's taken them quite a while to actually acknowledge that I am brilliant. It's taken them a long time. But they kept on coming back,
That's awesome. It's like, like when someone tells a joke and people laugh, they're like, oh, that's funny. You tell another one, and like, oh, that's funny too. If you keep telling more jokes and you keep making them laugh, eventually they'll say, you're funny. Right? So they'll start to associate the material with the person, and then the person can have even rubbish jokes, but people will still laugh because it's them that said it. It's like they get anchored, right? It's kind of like, Aaron has this with Fran. I have the similar effect with Duncan. It's just sort of the moment you start opening your mouth, the other person's like in trance, like straight away, because they're just conditioned, right? And I know that some of us obviously have worked together enough over the years that we have that level of rapport and that kind of automatic kind of like, just the moment they start, I'm just, or the moment I start, they'll just be gone, and that kind of thing. And it's the same sort of thing. Your clients will get used to you, even if Francine now, I bet that even if they went to another hypnotist who was also brilliant in their own right, that it would not be the same, and they'd prefer still to come see you, right? Because they get conditioned to it, right? Yeah.
I think he was the first person that I worked on, and so it's since 2018. So yeah, or 19, yeah. So yeah, well, he's close to be scratched now as a golfer. Yeah, I'm really impressed.
Well, you have another specialist line to add to your title now.
Me?
Being a golf coach, hypnotic golf coach.
Well, yeah, I'm quite lucky. He sent quite a, even when I was unwell, I still used to get the calls from other people. Hey, and I said, oh, I'm fully booked at the moment because I was unwell. And then that made them even more, okay, I'll book in advance. And I'm like, I need space. So it's like, oh, she's this fancy coach now. It's interesting how things go in life.
There's nothing like an empty restaurant to convince you to not want to eat there.
Now, I'm curious, being golf was brought up, how many of you work with athletes? Would any of you be interested in having that as a topic for next week? I've got a couple of protocols that I've come up with for athletes that I work with. We're down to 6 minis left, which leaves us for any last questions, comments, squirrels, all the fun stuff. Any takeaways, ahas, epiphanies from this week? Feeler. Okay. Good.
Epiphany is that it's often good to remind ourselves that to kind of step into the person, like if we have some ideal person and we step into them, kind of pretend to be them, like also having like an accent or often really helps us to go back up when we're kind of down. It's kind of easy to say, however we need sometimes to be reminded of it, and it helps a lot.
There's a lot to be said about the ability to pretend. Now, if you give yourself permission to pretend to, just like with the last class where, one of the students was very soft-spoken from here. And she wanted more confidence, she wanted to be heard and all this stuff. And I said, okay, so if you could pretend to be that type of a person, what would that sound like? Well, of course, like, what? I'm like, yeah, stand up. I want you to pretend to be the person that you're talking about. What would that sound like? And it took a while because she was like, well, I said, do you have somebody in mind? Do you know what, do you have a person in mind that talks the way, well, yeah, but he can be a little bit rough. I'm like, all right, then don't take on the bad habits. But if you could stand up and pretend to be him, what would that sound like? And all of a sudden, as soon as she grew 6 inches, shoulders flared out, and the voice that came out of her mouth, and she didn't even realize it. It wasn't, it wasn't like she was really trying to throw it out there. It came out naturally, but she was speaking, you could tell from her diaphragm, and filled the room. And Fran, you got a question, hand raise?
Yeah, it's not a 3-minute question though. Can you talk about, or can everybody talk about what it might be like, or if they do, merging into the energy field of your client or somebody else, and then, pacing and then leading on an energetic or holographic level? Anybody got anything on that?
That's definitely not a 2-minute answer.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I can turn that into
a whole class on that.
Yeah, I can turn that into a 30-minute topic.
Perhaps for later then, maybe another session.
Yep.
I'll tell you in one word. Not.
Amazing question, Fran. Oh my God, couldn't agree more. One thing that I had heard somebody, because I did not understand that concept and I felt like I was violating them, at the initial beginning of that. And one woman who I had spoken with, she asks, do you mind if I connect with you? And people just tend to say like, I don't know what that means, but sure, go right ahead. And that really helps open the doorway of getting their permission, not feeling like you're stepping in where you might not be, or they might not be okay, but it releases that block on both ends. But I thought the way that they had posed that was really good.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I find it's so important to get their agreement to it, and that's a beautiful place, beautiful way of asking them, Lenora. Really beautiful.
Well, that brings us up to the 7:59 on the Tiki Talk here on my screen, which means another amazing episode of Triple T has occurred thanks to all of you who have shown up and all the great questions and sharing. And again, I truly, truly appreciate every one of you showing up every week to give me something to talk about, empty my brain a little bit so it doesn't hurt, and getting feedback and hopefully giving you guys something that can improve your life. And I truly appreciate you guys sharing your knowledge because I enjoy hearing and learning. That's how I learned all this stuff. And if you're watching this recording or it's your first time, again, if you wouldn't mind, hit subscribe and ring the bell and share this with others. And I would appreciate that. Hopefully what we have on here can spread out and help as many people as possible. That's what this is about. So from me to all of you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And looking forward to seeing you again in 7. Have a wonderful rest of the week. I'm going to go out and be nice to people. Thanks, Aaron. You rock. Awesome.
That's where you're supposed to cut the stream, so I don't have to hold that.
I'll go back and freeze that one and put that as the, I'll just zoom in and make that for the cover.
Yeah.
The thumbnail.
Shut these down.
We're still live on YouTube.
Yeah, I got one at a time. I do multiple recordings to make sure that I